press Control to crouch.
The Crouch Peak Podcast.
Welcome to another episode of the Crouch Peak Podcast, as always a part of the Rushby Media Network. I am your host, Lucas at RBM. Of course, you can find me at Twitter at Lucas at RBM, and you can follow this lovely podcast at Crouch_Peak. You'll find the link tree there to follow us on all of your favorite platforms. And as always, we appreciate your continued support as we aim to grow this platform and the Counter-Strike scene as a whole. So this episode is particularly special. I would consider it even historic, in fact. For the first time ever on Crouch Peak, we are actually interviewing a special guest. And, this first one had to be a good one. So, we look at this guy, previously doing some analytics for MOUZ, most recently dubbed the assistant coach for that said team. A gentleman that I like to regard as North America's Tier 2, Tier 3 Atlas, seemingly keeping it all on his shoulders. If you don't know, now you know. It's the fish, the man, the legend, Mr. Koi. How we doing today?
I am doing all right. What an introduction.
Yes, absolutely. You know I go big for my boys. So I'd like to start off first. I mentioned your current affiliations with MOUZ, but I'd like to go a little bit before that, backtrack briefly into the meat of your journey. Just kind of starting out. Can you kind of walk me through how we got to this point?
Yeah, so back in high school actually, I had a friend that he went to university, and at his university, he had a college Counter-Strike club. And he reached out to me because I had had some friends in the past that had joked about coaching and stuff. And I was interested in coaching. He was like, "Well, I have a college team. If you want to come try it out." I was horrible. I was awful. They weren't much better, but it got me a little bit of a passion for it, I guess. It was something I wasn't good at, but I was gonna try and be the best I could at it. And from there, I bounced around a little bit. I found an advanced team, and I slowly worked my way up from there. So within 3 seasons, or 2 or 3 seasons, I was in Premier a little bit, and then I got my offer to go to Michigan Tech, as a player actually, and that's where I think I really learned the most. Because I was working alongside Voltage and Retina, and really figuring out the meat and bones of strategic Counter Strike, and that's what made me, I think, actually capable of at least learning at a tier 1 level for sure.
Okay. So when you started this whole journey, did you find that getting your foot in the door was easier or harder than what you initially expected? And alternatively to that, what were you expecting when you started the process?
So when I first like thought about Counter Strike as more than just a game I play matchmaking with friends on, um, it was really daunting at first, right?
Yes.
Because when you're first getting into it, there's so many different levels, and it's really intimidating, and it's really even just the differences between leagues, like main to advanced to premier, all that kind of stuff. It seems really, really challenging to even make any headway, right? Without networking or anything. If you are for all intents and purposes a nobody, especially as a coach, it's tough. It's really tough. Especially as a coach, there's no one that you can really there's a lot of YouTube videos and stuff out there about how to be a better player, how to shoot back position, utility, all that kind of stuff, right? But for a coach, what is there really? Maybe there's a couple small vlog style videos out there, but they're hard to find, and um no one's going to show them to you cuz you missed a nade.
Right.
So, it was really daunting at first, and never in a million years would I guess that I have gotten to this level. Honestly, the idea of doing anything or any esport at a tier 1 level, because I actually have a little bit of history in Overwatch too, but that's for a different different story. Um, just the fact that it's possible in any capacity really just goes to show how meaningless those barriers are if you just work hard, I guess. Because like in my opinion, anyone can learn the things I've learned if they just have the resources to do so. And that's why I'm trying to teach as many people and help as many people out on their journey as I can.
Yeah, that's fantastic, and I very much agree with you on that point. There is not a lot of resources as far as individuals who strive to work on the technical side of things to really get a grasp on how to start. So yeah, that's definitely a good point. I want to actually piggyback off of what you commented on, doing all of that extra work that you kind of do on the side besides your obligation at Mouse Sports. You recently opened up a spreadsheet on the timeline with some scouting reports, in particular players that you have personal experience with, and you've kind of put them up on the timeline for everyone to see. What was your thought process kind of starting that? Do you have like any goals beyond what you've started, or you just kind of, as you come across these moments, you're just kind of letting them um be seen by everybody to enjoy? Like, do you have a roadmap, or you just, is this another attempt at trying to push the envelope since nobody else is doing it?
So for like since the beginning of time, man, there's always been these like LFT looking for player spreadsheets like constantly.
Right.
But what I want to do is, you know, a lot of people just quote retweet and say vouch and stuff like that.
Yep.
But what I really want to have happen for all of these people that I've either worked with or have played with or just understand how they think and feel about the game is I really want them, if they don't have that big of a platform or something, I really want people to understand like that there's more to a player than just their stats. And I think that's something that hurts us a lot. And don't get me wrong, like that's still something that happens in EU and in APAC, like in all the regions. But I really just want to make sure that people start to understand and find value in in players that may not be the best statistically, but have what it takes to excel at an incredibly high level in whatever role they need to be in.
Do you think that the current lens that we look through in North America, do you think that it is kind of opposite of what you just described? You made a comment just now about the stats not necessarily saying the whole story. Do you think we look at it through kind of a correct lens in that regard, where we are looking at stats too much?
For sure. So one of the biggest things that NA suffers from is like its whole like personality problem, right? Everyone's very individual. Everyone cares about themselves to a certain extent. And as a result, teams don't often stick together all that much. You have players that are always cut after a season, or teams that are always cutting players if something doesn't work out within the first week of scrims, versus trying to actually push through those issues. And so, you know, I'd like to change that because that's stuff that doesn't always happen in Europe or other scenes. And so I'd like to break that mold. Um, Teams like RBG, for example, back when they were in advanced and made their run to Premier, and now are getting shipped off to Europe to play in ESL Challenger stuff. Like that's all really cool, and they did that because they stuck together, even if times weren't always great. They just need the rest of NA to catch up.
Do you think that lack of cohesion, lack of longevity, do you think that is a byproduct of, say, the culture that necessarily other countries don't have to deal with? Or is it something deeper than that? Like maybe it's an immature scene, so we don't have leaders? Like, do you think it's something that is deeply rooted in it, or is it something that we're kind of like dealing with temporarily?
It's definitely a mix of those two.
Okay.
The biggest thing I say a lot nowadays is if you compare the culture of the average like North American player versus the average of your standard like Eastern European player or something like that. Um, if you really get down to the nitty gritty, the North American player is usually like living an all right life. Um, they're living in America. They have options. Sometimes they're going to school or they're not, or they're working a job or something, right? Whereas when you compare like the average like living style of like an Eastern European player or a Brazilian player or something like that, like they're on the grind, man. Like they want to change something not only about their life, but they want to try and like bring other people out of it, or they want to make people proud of their country and things like that. And we just don't have that same level of passion and drive here in NA for whatever variety of reasons. And like I understand it to a certain extent, but the cultural divide is definitely there, for sure.
Okay. So that kind of touches into what I was going to ask you next. In regards to your recent tenure overseas with MOUZ, would you say that is the biggest contrast between your experience here and over there? That cultural difference, or that that lack of fire, I suppose, because of conditions or whatever. Would you say that's the biggest contrast?
It's definitely one of them. I think at a tier 1 level, most players have sort of understood that they've, like, made it, right? I wouldn't say they're content by any means, but, like, they're not, like, at risk anymore, um, of not making it and not getting the bag and stuff like that.
Right.
But you can definitely just, like, in the conversations I've had with them when it came to, their childhood and how they were brought up and how hard it was to get to where they are now, like, I can definitely see, like, and the opportunities that they have and how much it means to them. I can definitely see just the absolute disconnect between, like, your average North American premier player and your EU premier player or something, for sure.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. You think perhaps a player from an area who maybe doesn't have something to look back towards if CS doesn't work out, it probably gives them a little bit more fire than, say, somebody living in suburban North America. I suppose that's a good comparison, definitely. Um, touching, still staying on base with this mouse experience that you had, it's obvious that you yourself are very passionate about the game. You've mentioned a few times, not necessarily about your personal growth, not what it's necessarily just about. It's about helping other facets of the scene, domestically and otherwise. Mouse Sports, Mouse, an organization that's also renowned for their passion. Not necessarily being an org that has like venture capitalist money, et cetera, et cetera, and is really contingent on their passion. Were you finding that your passion and your desire to grow as an individual, was that met at that organization? Did you find that you fit in regards in that regard?
At the beginning, it was honestly a little weird,
Okay,
because to my knowledge, I'm one of their very few, if not only, North American, like, employee.
really, first
Um,
import, huh?
they might have, like, in maybe a different game or something. But at least in regards to Counter-Strike, I'm their first or their first North American, member, I guess.
Okay,
And so, as a result, the cultural difference was a little weird at
yeah,
the beginning. Um, things like, and this is just a general European thing, it's nothing towards my team, but, like, things like, how feedback is given and received is different, just because culturally, Europeans are very different. Um, and so it was definitely strange at first. Um, as for how the org has really supported me, it's, it was it's overall been very good, I'd say. Um, it's not a super big org by any means. It's no like G2 or Cloud9 or some of those very corporate orgs. And to a certain extent, you have pretty active communication channels with the people you need to. So it's been nice in that sense. It's way more professional than like the bedroom orgs or the small orgs that you get here in North America that are sort of forming the core of like tier 2 here for sure.
Okay, absolutely. So earlier, I called you Atlas, joking, but not, just because, for those who don't understand, Atlas, holds the world. That's the whole tie in there. You're constantly lifting the foundation up of the scene by constantly doing this work. Um, what when you stepped foot back in America, or when you were over there, what was something that came to you in that experience where you're like, okay, this is something I need to bring back and directly apply to this scene. So what are we missing here that is kind of commonplace there?
So for me, when I like first was introduced to MOUZ, I was exposed to like Mither's like it's not strict, but very structured practice style. And that just I just connected with that for sure. And so personally, what I've been trying to do is I've been trying to sort of integrate this idea of a structured practice, and a lot of like outside of like basically taking a lot of information that you collect outside of practice and bringing it in, right? So that people stay engaged, they stay active. It's no longer just one person talking, but ideally you have everyone contributing in some respect. And so after seeing that and how successful that is with my own team when it comes to improving us and how we adapt and stay relevant, like that that struck a chord with me, and that's something I'd like to see replicated in an A for sure.
Okay, definitely. So as we are, we're 2 weeks away from the new year, looking forward to 2022. What is something that you think the region itself, the entire North American scene, should focus on to get back into that upward trajectory?
Oh man, you're making me sit up for this one.
Oh yeah, I want some good stuff here.
So I think what people need to work on when it comes to getting better is everyone needs to, I'm not going to say like stop improving as individuals, but they definitely need to start putting their time elsewhere. And for the longest time, people used to say, watch more demos or watch your VODs back or something like that. But what it comes down to nowadays at the highest levels is how you work around your teammates. And so working with them in the server when it comes to coming up with new ideas or new little setups you can make, new set plays, things like that. That's what actually matters these days, and the synergy that you and your teammates have. And so that's why you see FPL Pug Stacks still doing so well in whatever tier of competition they're at because they just understand that. And it helps take the pressure off in high intensity situations when you got a core of guys that you can trust and stay behind. And that's one of the reasons why I made the spreadsheet, and one of the reasons why I stress don't not kicking players and things like that is because that synergy only happens once you've been around certain players for long enough. And Europe's good at keeping teams together, like at least for a year, right? And so it'd be nice if NA was able to at least keep up a little bit in that respect.
Okay. So you'd like to see more, like I looked to Liquid with the lineup they had. They effectively ran it January to December. Something you'd like to see that. Is that right?
Yeah, I'd like to see more of a stop thinking so much about this season
Yeah.
and start thinking more about next season and the season after that. Like make don't make like unrealistic goals. Set your expectations like, hey, this first season in advanced, I want to finish with a positive record. Next season, I want to aim for playoffs. Season after that, I want to make relegation. Like that kind of thing.
Okay.
If you don't quite reach those goals, like your first time around, that's okay. Like it's at the end of the day, a lot of players in NA are young, or they do have other plans in life, like they're going to school or something. Like they have backup plans. You don't have to try and rush the scene. Like switching a player out isn't gonna necessarily make you yourself better.
Totally fair. Okay, so for my final question, I'm gonna kind of pull back a little bit, get a little loose with it, not so uh, thought provoking and serious. Um, I'm sure you've thought about this before. I'm sure you have a short list. We'll go fantasy GM style. If you yourself had the opportunity to work with one player, one weekend, one event, one whatever, just one work session with them, who would that be?
Are we talking like a tiered, like a North American tier two
Anybody,
player?
player, coach,
Anyone
past,
that I
present,
work with.
future, anybody. Who would you get 8 hours, you get 2 days, whatever you want. Who would you, if you could commit time, they have free time for you, Koi. I'd love to work with you. Who would that be?
Am I teaching or am I learning?
Either.
Oh man, that's not fair.
We'll go
That's tough.
learning. We'll go learning. We'll go learning.
All right, all right. I learn. Hmm. Man, that's even tougher now.
Oh man. No
Let
language
me
barrier.
think. I don't. Oh man. I am. This is gonna sound a little stupid, and if you really think about it objectively, it is. Uh, I would like to talk for an extended period of time with Hiko.
Okay.
Um, and the reason for that is not
I don't
only
think
was
that's
he there at the beginning of like NACS being relevant, but he's from Michigan, and he's like our most our highest achieving Michigander, and for that, I want to at least talk to him and hear his story and try and adapt that into mine.
yeah. That's very noble. Honestly, I totally understand the regional aspect of it because I would personally love at some point to meet Skadoodle, being an Iowa guy. So that I totally respect it. So not a bad pick at all. As far as questions are concerned, that does it for me. I greatly appreciate your time, Coy. Just setting, in between all of the busy things that you have going on, just trying to help the scene in every way you can. Of course, I'm not even working in North America, but still helping North America. It's pretty stellar, and I hope that as the years progress, we can get back to the point where we have a lot of individuals like you, um, who carry that same passion. So I greatly that.
We'll be back. I'll make sure of it,
Yes,
as will the returning FPL players.
that's fantastic. That is absolutely something that we have to look forward to. I'm very excited for all of the prospects as well. But that is a conversation for another time. Again, if you guys are unfamiliar, you can catch this fine gentleman, Mr. Koi, on Twitter at Koi_CSGO, KOI for those who are not versed in spelling of fish. As far as myself, you can find me at Lucas at RBM. You can find the podcast itself, Crouch_Peak. That's PEEK for those of you who do not know how to spell CS terms. And that's pretty much it for me, guys. Greatly appreciate your time. Once again, greatly appreciate Koi taking time out of his night to come and speak with us. And as always, guys, we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Press Control to crouch.
The Crouch Peak Podcast.